hope you are doing well. Today I kind of wanted to redo and expand on the identity/individuals video. So today's video will be more serious, but I'll be back to entertainment in no time. Anyways, identity. Who am I? What am I? For some people, they may not spend a lot of time entertaining this, others may struggle with it for a very long time. And the way we discover ourselves or define ourselves will vary from person to person to person. Now, for other peoples, it might be the group versus the individual, which you might be like, what groups? Everyone belongs to some form of group. An important one would be obviously a familial one. Like, I think that's an essential one and a positive one most of the time, right? Now, we're talking about more general groups. It could be your friends and family, the social groups you belong to, other people. It's their race and culture that defines them. It's their political affiliations, their gender and sexuality, their religious and philosophical beliefs. I feel like I've covered most of them, right? They use these things. They're not by and large necessarily bad things, like I said, but they use that group identity as their only identity. I've never really been comfortable affiliating my group any sort of identity that I belong to, be it one I can change or not change, to my individual self, because I feel like I kind of define who I am, and the way I am will not be the same as another person. Anyways, like I said, for some people, it may not even just be the group, it might be just trying to discover who they are. Like, there's a difference between, say, somebody who is gay or bisexual coming out in a very strictly conservative family where it's neither discussed nor talked about, you know what I mean? Other people, it might be their own religious beliefs, like myself, right? Their own beliefs, trying to, well, okay, with me, it was never really whether I define myself as a Christian or not. It was more of the existential crisis, what does it mean to be human, that I struggled with, which, granted, I feel that has been a question that has existed for a very long time, and people spent their whole lives trying to discover. Like I said, I don't think any of these groups are necessarily bad. I mean, they can be all negatives, like especially the political one. In this day and climate, it's a lot of yelling and screaming and making personal attacks, and personal attacks aren't a good way in politics. And me, I see it as kind of pointless. Like, it's sort of like people can have their political views on stuff, and they define themselves by, be it antagonists or protagonists, whichever group it might be. And, like, sort of, if you're part of this group, you're hateful. If you're part of this group, you're a whiny little bitch, I'm being vague intentionally, and it's just unhelpful. Like I said, I don't care where people lean politically, left, right, center, whatever, but, like, again, we have to have that common understanding of agreeing to disagree. You know what I mean? That's one example. The other might be, let's say, race and culture. Say, for a lot of people similar to myself, where their ethnic origin differs from their nationality in every other aspect, right? They might be like, oh, I'm gonna use a random example, like, I'm not really Turkish, I'm not Irish, what am I? Let's say they have Turkish parents who immigrated to Ireland and they've been born and bred here, basically. See, somebody might struggle with the culture clash between those. I'm not saying necessarily every Turkish person, again, it's just an example. But some people might go through that crisis. They don't know where to define themselves between their ethnic origin and culture versus the one they live in now. Though, granted, I suppose you could apply this to, say, somebody who moves to a country with a vastly different culture anyways. And now, the religion one, I suppose why, this is partially why I don't necessarily define myself by the group, is because I feel like if I mounted my group identity as my individual identity, say when I was a practicing Christian, right? Like, the second I got agnostic or angry or atheistic in any sense, my identity would fall apart like a house of cards, you know what I mean? And like I said, it's not a bad thing. That's actually how some people found their identity. As much as I consider or criticize religion, that's not the entirety of what this video is meant to be about. The other gendered sexuality, that's a lot of people in their teens, they might question where they are or what they are. Like I said, I don't know, I was asexual till I was 18. I admit I didn't have the same level of social stigmatization as other people or exclusion, but it's all kind of how we discover ourselves. Some people, it is struggling with that particular thing and being comfortable in that. And though I never really used to understand the idea of cultural pride, I understand it now in the sense that, say, if somebody Irish does something good or worthy or represents their country in a good way, I can understand that sort of cultural pride you feel inside. But outside of that, no, not really. But I suppose nationality and culture were just kind of in my head when I was younger. Concepts, nothing more, nothing less, kind of thing. Like, I know where I am, I know who I am, so I'm kind of grounded in that sense. You know what I mean? But as much as I mention all these groups people belong to, I suppose, yeah, and the other thing some people do is say this can apply to people who are extreme fans of a particular celebrity, and again, political affiliations. Say people, if you in any way disagree or attack something that they define themselves as or are part of a group of, they will kind of go out of their way to attack you, and I'm just there like, that's not healthy either. Like, some things are wrong and you should call them out, but like, making personal attacks never helps anyone. And I suppose why I'm more of an individualist is because I suppose two things: personal responsibility, which is up to every person and individual, and a simple saying, though I don't think it really has to do with identity or individualism, though I'm probably just twisting it for my own personal use. You are the master of your fate, captain of your destiny. You define who you are and where you're going, be it hopefully as accurate as one can be, right? Because, like others, like I said, well, who am I? Am I defined by the good or bad I do? And, like I said, self discovery is a long path. And whatever group you belong to, be it cultural, race, sexual one, whatever, find that happiness for yourself. Why never, like, I'll explain why. I also never really want to say, for example, me being asexual, I don't like using that as a marketing tool or the whole is where I'm being, as much as education would be nice, because then I feel like I'd lose essence of myself. If I'm just defined, if I just used what I am purely for all that, I wouldn't be a very interesting or entertaining person. The same thing, like, I don't really use the fact that I'm black as a entertaining fact about myself. I don't really bring it up because it's kind of evident. I mean, born this way, die this way. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel like if I only use the factors I can't change about myself purely as a means to, as my personality, I'd lose essence of myself. But that's just a personal analysis. I probably could make a part two to this and go into more detail about how these groups and cultural identities and the good and bad on them. But I just wanted to know your opinion so far and how, in which ways you've struggled with your identity or even benefited. Thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll see you again.